Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday version of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan Roth, the Motor City Madmouth. Would love to bring back John Ryan, and that's what we're going to do before I bring John on here. Okay, thumbs up works too. We have Smoking Jeremy B is going to have a very busy week with us, but this is round one of at least three for the guy. Anyhow, welcome back, Kneecap Biting.
Glad to be here. Always fun to talk sports.
All right, and George Eichhorn.
Howdy, good to be on. Appreciate that.
And once again, John Ryan Sports numero uno. Is that right? My eyes going bad, or am I getting it right?
It is the number one. Yep, at John Ryan Sports and the number one.
And you say you're a 28-year sports bettor. All right. Well, the title of the show will be betting on the NFL draft, folks. So, I know this is certainly betting is taking over our day and age, and there's no better person that I'm pleased to have on our platform than John Ryan. All right, John, got a couple questions. Everybody's going to go out there and get an opportunity to talk on them. And then, by the way, after the Sports Exchange, we have Fire Up Florida of Chris Prodel, Travis Holmes, and we're going to have Kyle Nash to join us. So we have a doubleheader tonight. So let's get it going. All right, John, question numero uno. The value of mock drafts. Are certain sources better than others? Do you take them seriously? I know tons of people are doing them.
Well, I don't take all of them seriously, with all due respect. A lot of time and energy goes into them. I know Smoking Jeremy does one, and that should be respected. And I'm not just saying that because of the show, but there's ones that you can get some good information from and then leverage it. But, it reminds me of the NCAA tournament. We all think we're going to get the bracket right. We're going to win our pool with our buddies at the office, and we're going to show everybody how smart we are. And we end up kind of with egg on our face and, kind of looking pretty dumb, especially this last NCAA tournament. So I kind of take the mock drafts with a grain of salt. There's a lot of information you can pull out of them that is very useful information for sports betting down the road after the draft is over. I always make the comment in topics like this with the New England Patriots that many years that they won the Super Bowl, they did not have a number one draft pick. So my theory became, and it was kind of tongue in cheek, not trying to be a comedian or anything, but it was kind of like, well, the secret to winning the Super Bowl is not to have a number one pick, so you don't waste all that time and energy trying to figure out who you're going to take. And, for the Patriots, it has obviously worked. I don't know if that's a model that franchises should use and general managers should use each and every year. But I do think this draft brings a lot of different variables than we have currently than any other year previous. Reason is we get to see 4 quarterbacks drafted in the first 5 or 6 picks. We might not see a wide receiver go till pick number 11. We might not see a offensive tackle taken until the Eagles take a kid from Georgia, number 10. So I think this is a very intriguing type of draft. And if I was betting, I would say there's going to be still a lot more trades in these first 2 rounds than what people think is going to happen.
Well, I can tell you right now, the LA Rams don't value draft choices either. How many have they shipped out to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions? And since Jeremy's chomping at the bit to get a word in, got to make him number 2 here in the pecking order. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I don't know if John checked out my show or something or saw some of the comments. But in 2021, I got 8 out of 10 right in the top 10. I was 18 of 32 on which player, and I was 25 of 32 on what position the teams would take.
That's awesome.
Last year on day 2, because I really didn't have time because I was setting up my podcast on location to do a draft show. In day 2, when I did it at home where I was relaxed and comfortable and everything else, I got 9 wrong in 2 rounds.
Okay.
Live on the air.
Speaks for itself.
So I'm not saying I'm that great. I'm just saying the professionals are that bad.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was trying to start us off with.
Okay. So with that said, Jeremy, all right, I'm going to give you a follow-up question. what professionals were bad?
If you name them, I'll tell you what networks they were from: NFL Network, ESPN, CBS, Sportsline. I don't know their names other than Melkiper, toddmcshay, and the guy that was GMing for Oakland, Mikemayock. They all have been horrible. They have less than a 60% accuracy.
All right, so you have Mikemayock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have
Melkiper and toddmcshay.
And toddmcshay.
Those are the three big ones I can remember off the top of my head. If you're talking draft prognostication, those guys were always considered the top in the game. What they are is great at scouting ability.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, can I ask you a question? I know this is, for me, not to ask the question is a little irregular on this show, but I have to ask you, do you think it's possible that some of these GMs and the people that report to the GM call up these guys and they have contacts and they kind of put things in motion so that the public and everybody else thinks a player and the other 31 teams in the league think that they're going for a certain position or a certain guy to open up the door for the guy they really want?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the smoke and mirrors thing. They do it every year. Look at that movie Draft Day, which was probably one of the most realistic trading scenarios I've ever seen in a movie. The way he played it off, got rid of the pick, then everybody was mad at him. They ended up being able to get that guy and trade back up and get the guy that everybody else wanted to. That type of stuff happens. You start something. Look at the rumors that come out about people where they end up falling in the draft, and lo and behold, they go to where their perfect fit is.
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of
Such as if Carolina took Will Anderson.
Carolina should take Will Anderson, but they're going to go quarterback, and more than likely, in the rumors I'm hearing, cjstroud is it. I'm hearing these rumors of Bryce Young, but if you look at what their offense runs, cjstroud is actually the most pro-ready quarterback that if you watch last year and how he played, accuracy, decision-making, and everything else, he played with the closest to an NFL wide receiver room in college, which means that's what he's going to be playing with in the pros, which is what makes him better. It was kind of like Macjones the year that he went to the Patriots. He played with NFL-ready wide receivers. Alabama doesn't have that anymore since then, which is why Bryce Young looks good, but he doesn't look as good. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
All right, so let me ask you a question. Okay, John, I don't know if you've heard of him, but wasn't it Vince Tobin that called out Melkiper once time? So, Jeremy, you're nodding your head. I remember that Vince Tobin called out Melkiper. So why don't you go ahead and rehash a little bit of that?
Basically, when he called out Melkiper, I remember the end comment. I don't remember what he started it with, but he said, the best thing you have going for you is your hair.
That's pretty funny. Well, I know George Eichhorn's been patiently waiting to say something. Go ahead, George. But before you do go, George, okay, I want everybody to know that the audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio. All right, stop laughing, Jeremy. Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Don't do that, Jeremy. I have to maintain my concentration. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. So once again, also, please comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topics, ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. Also, if you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. Now, we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. All right, George, go ahead.
Well, mock drafts are becoming so much more routine, obviously, than they used to be. Every pro football writer and broadcaster, it seems like, has one or two or three.
Or 100.
Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press, who I admire his work, I think he's on either 3.0 or 4.0 the other day in the paper. And I think that they do serve a purpose, though. I think the fans are hungry for information. They're hungry for NFL rumors and that sort of thing. I do think that they do serve a purpose. Whether we need 3 or 4 mock drafts between the end of the Super Bowl and draft day is nonsense. I don't think you need that many. But the things are turning, rumors are coming out, and I really think that they're a dime a dozen nowadays compared to before. But that's because the hunger and the thirst, the appetite, if you will, of the sports fan is to get those mock drafts and to talk about them with friends, to talk about them on shows like this and go from there. And what you guys alluded to earlier, oh, yeah, I'm sure there are secrets that are let out or rumors that go around, because what you want to do is you want to create maybe a false image out there. So you're not telling you're not telling the media the truth, because you don't want it to know that, oh yeah, the Lions are really going to take a quarterback, which we know they probably won't, of course, but you want those rumors to be out there and sometimes to be fed so that the team can make a little bit of an end around and go to the player they actually want to draft. So there's some of that I think that goes on as well. But you got to laugh at when the general manager gets in front of the media, a day or 2 or 3 days or whatever it is before draft day, because he's probably not ever going to tell the truth. So the mock drafts, I think, do serve a purpose.
Well, let me tell you, this draft whole thing is a guessing game, anyways. And the only thing I like about it is every time I share content on Twitter, I love it when my followers go ballistic here and they really eat this stuff alive. I'm amazed at how many retweets I get on Twitter. I'm only going to ask you this question, John, and not everybody else. Okay. Do you think that the Baltimore Ravens, okay, are going to take a quarterback in this draft because of Lamar Jackson?
Well, I'll tell you, it depends on what's available when they are drafting, and that sounds pretty vague and pretty obvious. But they are a franchise, I think, that's probably a couple years away from making a run for another Super Bowl potentially. So I think for them to take a quarterback now, given that 4 of the first 5 4 quarterbacks might be drafted in the first 5 picks, is going to leave it, the cupboard's going to be pretty bare. And I'm not really sure who is available out there, except for, I think Jeremy was talking about that kid from Tennessee.
Hendonhooker?
Might be a wild card pick for them to take, and then they have time to develop it, and develop a lot of parts of their game so that they can make a run in 3 or 4 years. I don't think they're a Super Bowl ready franchise. You compare them to Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo, and I don't think they're really one quarterback draft pick away from making it to the Super Bowl. So I think I would take a pick with one of the defensive ends that'll be available coming around that time instead of trying to get offense.
Well, the amazing part about it is Lamar Jackson slid to him late in the first round, anyways. So, what's the difference where they slide? I can tell you how many quarterbacks have slid late, but we don't. That's not the purpose of the show tonight. We'll address it perhaps at another time. But Lamar Jackson, I do know Dan Marino slid it to the end of the first round, and the list goes on. But I'm not going to go
Some
there.
guy named Brady.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's like a 6th round pick out of Michigan. I think he was pretty good. Okay. Final question of the night, John. Tricks to betting on the NFL draft.
Well, I think, you probably want to save your pizza money bets for another occasion, because this is going to be pretty nuts. But I do think it's pretty weird that, all of a sudden Bryce now is the favorite to go number 1.
Yeah.
I think if I was, I would bet pizza money on this. And what I mean by that, whatever your pizza costs. Like tonight, we actually had pizza tonight. It was $21. So maybe I put $20 on Will Anderson on a flyer that he goes number 1. That's where the value is. And you got to remember, you're supposed to have fun with this. These aren't bets where I'm, stepping up for a game where I'm pushing the envelope, and these are games that I want to hit 70% of the time. This is the NFL draft, and much like the NCAA tournament, anything can and will happen, as Jeremy and George both highlighted very, very well. There could be last-minute trades going on, even as we speak now. The draft is still pretty far out there, but on draft night, watch the movie Draft Day. As Jeremy said, one of my favorite movies. The posturing it's like Texas Hold'em for the NFL among the GMs. And
It is.
It is pretty cool movie, and I think that is pretty close to what reality is. So I think what you do is, you get your wings and your beer and you cheer for your team to get the guy that you want. But remember, at the end of the day, like the movie Moneyball, these guys don't know how this guy's going to translate that they draft into the future. They think they know, but a lot of times these draft picks don't end up too well. I mean, the first name that always comes to mind is Ryan Leaf, God bless his soul, and they were way off on him. And it's not his fault that they were way off. And sometimes they pay these guys enormous sums of money and then it doesn't translate. So then the player becomes the bum. It's a very difficult situation through and through. So I emphasize just have fun with it. You don't even have to bet it. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the volatility of it and the surprises. So I think this draft is going to have a lot more surprises and shocks than any other draft we've seen.
Yeah, your version of surprises is my version of hidden gems.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love using the word hidden gems. All right.
Yep.
Jeremy, what do you have to say about this one?
What was that again about the betting on the draft, right?
Yeah, tricks to betting on the NFL draft, Jeremy.
Tricks to betting on the draft is studying what the team's needs are and the best players available that fits those needs. Because that is what most teams do. You can do all this smoke and mirrors. They're going to take this guy. They're going to take that guy. You look at what the players fit their needs and who's available in those positions at the top of the draft. The best player that is in that need is usually who goes at that point. Nowhere does it mean that team's going to be a Super Bowl contender the next year. Nowhere does it mean they're going to get better the next year, because quarterbacks, cornerbacks, and safeties all take about 2 to 3 years to develop before they actually get good. It's very rare you have Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert out there.
Yeah, well, that almost reminds me of the draft when Dan Marino, John Elway, and that incredible class came out. I believe it was 1983, if I remember right. So
it was.
So, well, we have Felicity Jean. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate that. So, all right, George, give me your version of what you think the tricks are to betting on the NFL draft, because we're giving the journalistic perspective here. George and I are probably two people would be we're probably as bad as Melkiper, Todd McShay, and the rest. So I wouldn't.
Well, I think that, first of all, a lot has changed over the years because of the free agency period. So you have a situation now where these teams are going out there and many of them are addressing their needs already, or have addressed, they think, their needs already. For example, the Lions bolstered up that secondary already.
Right.
So I don't see the Lions taking somebody in the secondary in the first round. That's just my
unless
opinion.
Somebody falls to them that's a great talent. I completely agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree too. What John said, it is so difficult to predict these things. I would not put a lot of money and go to the Vegas or the sports betting parlor to try to pick, which team is going to draft who. We all know that the 4 top quarterbacks are going to go early. Okay, so that's a given. You might want to put a little money on that. But the fact of the matter is that you're right. These teams need to address their needs. Some of those have been addressed already in the free agency, and some have not. Of course, some teams have not gotten rich, so to speak, in free agency so far. But I agree. It's really dangerous when you start trying to predict who's going to land who, and who's this and who's that, and this guy is better than this guy as far as offensive line or defensive back or whatever it is. So it's a lot of fun though. But yeah, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it because, like John said, just some pizza money would be good if you want to go that route.
Yeah, the only thing I can say about this is I remember even last year when a lot of people thought the Jacksonville Jaguars would snap up Aiden Hutchinson and they opted to go Trayvon Walker. Well, it worked out well for both teams because Jacksonville knew a lot about Trayvon Walker because he plays over at TIAA Bank Stadium anyways. And of course, people in Metro Detroit are all too familiar with Aiden Hutchinson. So,
right.
So again, the main thing is, I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a very good point, Scott, because sometimes you have a more of a regional perspective on it if you have scouted or you see the kid play a lot more.
Yeah, well, and you make a great point too, as free agency does. I like the order too. You go free agency, before the draft, and then all of a sudden use the draft as a reinforcement. So the NFL's got it figured out about the sequence for which these things should take place. So with that said, we hope everybody's enjoyed this edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth. Please be joined by Smoking Jeremy B, George Eichhorn, and John Ryan, who obviously is our betting expert, I should say. Enjoy having John on. He provides some unique insights about probably the most trending subject on the planet. I mean, once upon a time, the NFL didn't want any gambling in any cities, but now what do you have? A team in Vegas, Detroit has it, and now you got Indian casinos all over the place. So it's become something people have slowly acclimated to. So that's why what John brings to our show every couple of weeks is some unique perspectives on how you go ahead and approach different events. I should point out that John will be here from time to time, especially when big events come. I don't want to get into too much right now, but some examples of that will be the Kentucky Derby. We'll see what he goes ahead and knows about motorsports and all that. We make sure John has enough time to prepare for his subjects, and I make sure he gets an earful over in my direct message part over on Twitter. So, hey, what can I tell you? But that's what we bring. This is a unique perspective. We're going to be doing a lot of draft coverage leading up to April 27th, which, by the way, is my brother Lonnie's birthday. So, it'll be, and there will be no Inside the Pigskin or any shows on that day, but we'll have a lot of draft preparation going on. John, once again, good to have you on. But before you go, as I tell people, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, John?
Well, simply you can get me at John Ryan Sports, the number 1, and the website is thepredictiveplaybook.com. Just send me a direct message, just like Scott does to me, and we'll hook up, and I'll try to answer your questions. And believe me, I've learned a lot from people who direct message me too. You can't do this in a closet, and you can't be successful in anything you do by yourself. You have to have an open mind and listen to great ideas, and eclecticize. It's my favorite word. Learn from others, and you'll do well.
Very good. All right, Jeremy, you're next.
All right. You can find me at the southfloridatribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading, where you'll see me with the list of authors with the likes of Scott and with George. You can also find me on my YouTube page, which is Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B. And you can find me right here on the South Florida Tribune channel on YouTube, where I could be on any day of the week whenever Scott needs me. I don't care the show. I don't care what it's about. I'll have a comment.
Yeah. I can hardly tell.
And Felicity Jean, hi, babe.
Another one of those. Hey, get her to subscribe. We'll bring her on as a guest, too. So you hear that? Felicity, I'll take them all. I want new voices and everybody. Right, John? Isn't that the right idea?
Yep.
Felicity Jean, you subscribe, and
More the better.
We'll work you in the lineup. Mark my word. Jeremy handles all my kneecap biting followers. He just tell me who's ready, and I just plug them into the system. And last but not least, Mr. George Eichhorn. And hopefully, John, one of these days you're going to buy this guy's book with all your pizza money or whatever you call it. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, the book is called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and it features, we got a lot of football guys in here, going back to our dear friends Van Patrick and Bob Reynolds, Frank Beckman. We've had some great announcers here in Detroit calling football. And I also am a writer for the South Florida Tribune and the Motor City Tribune. There's a link to the book to purchase the book at the end of my columns in the Motor City Tribune, or else you can just go to Amazon.com and you can find out how to get it directly. I contribute to Scott's broadcast, the podcast here. I enjoy being on different shows, the football show, sometimes the baseball show, and Sports Exchange and Fire Up shows. So you can reach me at geichhorn@yahoo.com. You can also reach me at Twitter at SandGSports99. And of course, I'm also available on LinkedIn under my name. So great to be part of the show again. And Scott's in the book too. You got to know this, John, that Scott was interviewing Muhammad Ali in one interview and Jimmy Connors. Doesn't get much higher than that, does it?
It doesn't. That's
And
awesome.
I should tell everybody I'll get to that in a moment. I do want to give a special kudos to Candy Abling. Does an unbelievable job with this platform. And I mean, you talk about unbelievable. Now she's taking on an increasing role as a broadcaster as well on some of these shows when I'm out on the road doing projects, and I'll be on the road this week with the Detroit Red Wings and Tampa Bay Lightning Wednesday. So Candy's going to be getting a lot of airtime for sure. So, I enjoy that. So our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. And again, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well under Scott Morganroth, my first and last name. So, as I said, John, I enjoy having you on. You give me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I love it.
You keep giving me perspectives like anybody there. Once people develop a following here, that will be good. So I should point out that the audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. Okay. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. We know we're getting there. We've come a long way from zero. We've come a real long way from zero. We're just looking to hit that mark. Also, please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to advertise, call 954-304-4941. We are live, as Brent Musburger would say, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So great job by my crew tonight. We hope we've given you some different perspectives how to look at the draft. And John, don't worry, I'll give you your next idea. We're going to run with it like we did this one too. So glad to have you here with us. So on behalf of, once again, on behalf of Smoking Jeremy B., John Ryan, George Eichhorn, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us. We have Fire Up Florida after this broadcast. So we are out until the next time.
That was awesome.